the budget amendments and then also we all get it. Yeah, we don't do that. Appreciate that. Go to Jim. Yes.
It is 7 o'clock. Okay, I call this Hildebran County Council meeting to order. Thank you all for coming out tonight. We will begin with a moment of silence. Thank you. And Mike is going to lead us in the pledge.
Please, flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our review and adoption of the agenda, and I think there's a couple changes or some additions.
Yes, Mayor, we have 3 additions, so we would be looking to start those at 8I. First one would be a budget amendment for building and grounds in the amount of $16,000. The second would be 8J, it would be a budget amendment in the amount of $5,000 for parks. And then the third would be a approval of the LGC letter for the audit. That would be 8K. And that's all.
We already got
So then you're bumping all the rest of them back then, right?
Right, 8I
Okay.
then will be bumped down.
All right, look over that, make a motion whenever you're ready.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
All in favor? Thank you. Approval of minutes, February 27th, 2023, regular meeting minutes. Look over those and make a motion when you're ready.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
All in favor? Thank you. Public comments? None, okay. Okay, number 6 is a public hearing. So I open this public hearing for ZTA 2023-1, changes to language in section 10.4 planned unit developments. And our town planner is here. Hello, Rachel.
Hi.
Do you have anything to speak on, or just
Um,
wait for questions, or what?
well, I'll present it, and then if anyone wants to speak on it, I'll answer any questions. So the zoning text amendment I presented to you today is regarding section 10.4, planned unit developments. Currently, planned unit developments are a special use permit under special regulations. And there are a couple of changes that I'd like to see made. This was brought to me by town staff. So section 10.4E, to remove the sentence, the applicant must resubmit the plan to the planning board if the changes were recommended by council. So right now, our planned unit development is brought to the planning board, and the planning board will act administratively, and our town council acts as the board of adjustments. It's a special use permit, but if any regulations were put on it or changes by town council, it would have to go back to planning board and start the process over, which instead of just passing it with changes and regulations. So that's the first reason I wanted to remove that. And then 10.4G is to remove the language overall use of the area for building shall be no more than 25% of total land area in its entirety. And I'll get to that. The main reason is that it's just not compatible with the rest of our ordinance and the language that's found with the underlying zoning. And then 10.4M and 10.4O are the So I just combined it into one paragraph. So those two are cohesive now. So the biggest changes are 10.4G, and the reasoning for that is that it offers developers the possibility for more efficient and flexible methods, and only allowing 25% of the total land area to be built upon is in the spirit of that language of allowing for developers more efficient and flexible methods. And then also, it's just not compatible with the rest of our ordinance. For example, all community developments have to follow underlying zoning. But when you look at something like highway business or general manufacturing, community developments are allowed in all of our districts. It states that development activities can cover up to 70% of the area as long as they're outside of watershed. So that's different than the 25%. And that goes for everything. In the central business district, I believe it's 100% of built upon area. Even in watershed, it's 36%, which is higher than the 25%. So I just have recommended removing that language and allowing for all planning unit developments to follow that underlying zoning. So if it was a parcel in general manufacturing, it would be 70%. If it was in watershed, it would be 36%, following all that underlying zoning requirements. It's also in accordance with the kind of Hildebran comprehensive development plan, as it's important to provide a selection of housing options. Planned unit developments are typically apartments, so this would help with apartments, especially nearby retail centers, downtown activity centers. So it allows for that flexibility, especially in our downtown that has a little bit higher built upon area as well. So the planning board made a recommendation of approval at our March 7th meeting. And then I have the changes made, and you can see that the letters move a little bit, move down a little bit. You can see the strike through language on those. Specifically, N is the language that was combined. The new M. And I'm happy to answer any questions regarding this request.
And is there any comment from the public?
Any questions?
There being no questions and no comment, I will close this public hearing. And we will move on to 7, old business, 7A. Consider approval of ZTA 2023-1, section 10.4, planned unit developments. And council may discuss and make a motion. And I guess it's in here in your packet how to make that motion. Okay.
Let's bear
Yeah, whoever wants to be brave enough
I'll
to
do
read.
it. I, Jody York, make a motion to approve the updated language in section 10.4 of the Town of Hildebran zoning ordinance. I found that the proposed text amendment is consistent with the Town of Hildebran comprehensive plan due to the desire to provide a selection of housing in the Town of Hildebran, specifically high-density housing and activity areas. The request to update planned unit development language is reasonable and in the public interest due to its ability to allow more flexibility, efficient, and quality housing for residents.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. 7B, continued discussion of auditorium renovation project and grant opportunity. Logan, you're going to tell us about that.
Yes, so if you'll turn to attachment 7B. So as we know, the North Carolina legislature allocated the town of Hildebran $150,000 via the state capital infrastructure grant program to perform renovations to the Hildebran Auditorium. Council directed staff to engage architect Bach Alam to review the auditorium's existing condition and craft a plan for renovations. Mr. Rolon's plans include new seats, addressing ADA deficiencies, reworking the entrance, and expanding the rear of the auditorium for a green room storage space and one additional handicap restroom. However, the renovations far exceed the amount of the SCIF grant. Projected costs exceed the amount of the SCIF grant. In previous meetings, council has discussed retracting the scope of the renovations. However, staff reached out to the Western Piedmont Council of Governments as well as the Department of Commerce to discuss potential grant funding to address the Hildebran Auditorium. The Department of Commerce partnered with Appalachian State University to create a pilot program called the Rural Community Capacity Program. 19 rural communities participated in the program to initiate or evaluate growth plans in their municipality or county. After completing the program, communities with a graduate of RC2 had $49,500 set aside in non-matching funds for their community for planning or project implementation costs via the state's Rural Transformation Grant Fund. There are 4 categories to apply within. 1 is Main Street, 2 is resilient neighborhoods, 3 is enhancements for economic growth, and then 4 is for educational training and advancement. To best understand the options for the town, I met with the Western Piedmont Council of Governments and the Department of Commerce to discuss options for our grant. During that meeting, we discussed the auditorium project along with our gym and municipal complex. After explaining the auditorium project and the needs for the other 2 facilities, we agreed upon to propose 2 things to council. So number 1, apply to use the $49,500 that was set aside for Hildebran for what we would call like a facilities master plan or like a 10-year CIP, however you want to look at it, something along those lines. What we would do is we would look at the municipal complex, the building we're in now, the gym and the auditorium, while also submitting a second grant application that would allow us to complete all or most of the renovations at the auditorium that was proposed by Bob at some of our previous meetings. So the grant cycle opened on March 22nd, it closes on May 3rd, and then awardees are announced in June of this year, so we're about 10, 11 weeks out from an announcement if we were to apply. In terms of a recommendation, staff recommends the council direct staff to secure and prepare all materials needed for a rural transformation grant application, of $49,500 to secure a firm to complete a facilities master plan or 10-year facilities capital improvements plan, again, just how you want to look at it. To review needed renovations to the auditorium, the gymnasium, the municipal complex, and then some outside work, landscaping around those facilities as well as to apply for a second rural transformation grant to complete auditorium renovations proposed by Mr. Long. If approved by council, our application will most likely fall within resilient neighborhoods, but it may fall in the Main Streets category. The main reason for resilient neighborhoods is the Main Street category is the most competitive. So you're gonna have a lot of competition in that category. So when we sat down and discussed this with the Department of Commerce and the COG, that was the advice that was given. So I know we had talked mainly about just doing the seats in ADA, and then brought up some plans that would kind of address all of the deficiencies of the auditorium. He may want to speak to that. You may have questions about that. But basically what council would do is if we did apply to get a grant with auditorium, you would need to have all of that information submitted at the latest by May 3rd. Awardees would be announced in June, and then you would have 36 months to spend those funds. I don't think you're gonna need anywhere near 36 months if you were awarded. But at this point, if council has any questions, if that sounds like a decent plan, what we would do is we would kind of hit the pause button on what we're doing now with everything except for cost estimates for the renovations proposed by Bob. And we would need a motion and a vote to apply for that. We would bring you back the application and probably a resolution to apply next month with all application materials. That's all I have.
I'll make a motion.
Make a motion
I'll make a motion to go for the grant,
for both, let's do two motions.
For both.
For both, okay.
both of them.
All right, we're making two motions or one?
I'd say we make them as two different motions.
Okay, so you made the motion for.
The first one would be a 10-year facilities plan,
Thanks.
and then the second one would be the auditorium renovations.
Okay, all right, all in favor? All right, thank you. Do I have another motion?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you. 7C, consider approval of contract and budget amendment for patrol services at the community park.
Okay, so staff has provided the proposed contract from Delta Protection Agency LLC for park opening and closing services each day, as well as 2 additional proposed patrol services each week. There is a proposed budget amendment for the remainder of the fiscal year starting in May, and we would need a motion and vote for the contract, as well as another motion and vote for the budget amendment. And Terry picked this meeting to miss after all of the requests on the park, so.
He got caught in a wreck, that was about 20 minutes behind.
Oh,
He's
wow.
trying to be here.
So it's not because he doesn't want to be here. Okay.
Okay. Well, does anybody besides Terry want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion to.
It seems wrong, but we can't.
All right, all in favor? All right, thank you.
Another motion for what?
Now we need a motion for the budget amendment.
Okay,
I'll make a motion for the budget.
okay, all in favor? All right, thank you. All right, is that been all about the park? That park?
Yes.
All right, 7D, discussion of Royal Park design.
Okay, so if you will turn to attachment 7D, we have West Consultant's first draft for council's review. You'll see the initial proposed site plan for Royal Park. After some review, what we're gonna need to do is council will need to determine if the amenities shown on the current plan are suitable for the council. I know there's been prior discussions that the stage may be relocated near the gym, kind of facing the municipal complex. Excuse me, and the upper parking lot that the HHDA generally has the cruise in set up for. If that is something that council discusses and wants to do, the only other consideration that you may want to discuss is by moving the stage from the initial from where it's at now. If you move the stage, you may want to consider moving the pavilion. If you move the stage to the side of the gym facing the parking lot and where the park will be, your picnic pavilion, most likely if you have cars in that lower parking lot or vendors, food trucks, whatever, you may not be able to use that pavilion to see the stage from that location. So you may want to, if you're looking at the map now, let's see here. If you're looking at it now, you may want to move it to this little crease below where the stage is. So then you've got a direct line sight. It does 2 things. Number 1, if you move the pavilion here, you have viewable access to the stage, but you also have viewable access and close proximity to either the splash pad or playground equipment. The other idea is you could move the pavilion up to where the playground and splash pad equipment is. You just may, let's say if you moved it to the far right of the playground equipment, you may cut off the view from a small portion of your parking lot. That's just a consideration. If you move it over here, in between the walkway. Obviously, you don't provide any, or don't create any vision impairment, for the parking lot or the rest of the park.
Now, was that directly behind the playground equipment, little square? Were you talking about?
It would be directly to the right of it. So you've got the playground equipment, you've got the walkway below it. Yeah, you would end up, you could put it there. And here's the other thing I'll say before we get too far into it is West Consultants has told me that they would need some type of final approval for all of this by April 3rd. So that leaves you tonight to decide where this stuff's gonna go. So don't be bashful if we wanna figure it out.
I think the stage needs to be moved over beside the gym.
Yeah, it's along the gym.
And the pavilion, put it in that little, you stop right there.
Well, we
So,
want
yeah,
the stage where you're not looking directly into the sun. And way back when the committee, they put it,
you could either face.
you'd be looking into the sun.
Doesn't matter what you
So I
do.
think being over beside the gym would be a better alternative.
Then you would most likely.
And people like to, sit up on the bank
But
and
you
the
may
tree
create
so
a
they can see
slide
it better from there.
Yeah.
to move it up here.
So I think that's,
To the people who like to sit and do stuff there. So you've got two options where you don't create any, not unless you
Up
want to.
here, that's what I'm saying.
But the problem is, if you do put the
Few people sitting there.
pavilion there, you may block the line of sight for people that shares here. So maybe first question is, how does council feel about the stage at the bottom of the gym facing the park / the parking lot here? Is that agreeable or is that?
Yes.
I like that.
Okay, so then the second question is, in terms of the pavilion, do you wanna see it up near the playground equipment, like right beside it, or do you wanna see it maybe into that?
Put it where they got the, stage. Where did that say?
Yeah, just right below the.
Yeah,
the stage.
Put it where they got the stage right now. That's my opinion, but they like to speak too.
You're saying, you're calling pavilion, on here it's got picnic shelter, is that
Same
what?
thing, yeah,
Okay,
yeah, same thing.
all right, so move that, yeah, I agree, and, well, how does everybody feel about that? Okay,
Now, will that impede the lawn chairs being set up, moving the picnic shelter?
Yeah, if you were to move the picnic shelter to the, splash pad and playground equipment, you do probably limit the amount of seating you can have right there at it, but again, you would be providing it via the picnic shelter. So pros and cons.
anything else that y'all see is everything else okay where they're drawing? Splash pad, playground, and concession, and restrooms. All that's pretty much in a good place. Okay,
So,
okay. All right, good. All right.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it would just be consensus, if council wants to have a consensus, you don't necessarily have to have a motion to vote, but
I'm gonna ask if they want to look at it directly that way or more about
you know, in terms of how you position the stage, you could either face it directly at the, from your point of view, basically the maintenance building on the drawing, or you could catty corner it slightly and have it face the park and the,
at the parking
Parking
lot.
lot.
So,
that's a preference for you all. However, I don't think if we want to switch that, I don't think that's gonna be too big of a deal, just to slightly turn it. But if you are of a consensus tonight, that does make it easier.
Well, I think have it, as you say, catty corner facing the park and the parking lot.
Is that also consensus by council?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right, I can take
All right.
that. Okay, that's all I've got.
All right, no need for a vote. Okay. 8, new business, 8A, code enforcement quarterly review, Chad Howell.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. We don't currently have anything pending action with the council as far as code enforcement goes, but I want to provide you with a brief update about our code enforcement statistics and actions that occurred during the first quarter of 2023. You should have before you 2 separate reports that I put together to illustrate and lay out the information being presented. One of those reports is going to be our latest monthly report for the month of March. And the other report is the information I'm going to go over, which is a summary of the cases generated throughout the first quarter of the year. So far this year, we've had 42 code enforcement violations, which consist of 35 nuisance cases dealing with trash, junk, debris, waste, etc. 3 cases involving junk vehicles or nuisance vehicles, 3 minimum housing violations, and 1 non-residential building minimum standards violation. The quarterly report that you have in front of you has a page that lists the location and the status of each violation for the first quarter. The following page outlines all of our currently open and active violation cases that I'm still working toward resolution on. 26 of our first quarter violations have been resolved so far, which is a 62% resolution rate. And so far, I'm still seeing a good amount of results. Typically, when I'm dealing with a violation, half my battle is just being able to make contact with the property owner or whoever's in control of the property. Once I'm able to make contact with somebody, I generally receive favorable outcomes if I'm able to explain the process to them and give them a reasonable, expectations and just go over things with them. I've had a few individuals recently let me know that they just moved into town or they weren't aware of what code enforcement was until I sent them a letter. So I always appreciate the opportunity to explain, the code enforcement process to people like that. Because once they realize that somebody's being proactive and they're looking at those sorts of things, they tend to, take better care of the property going forward when they know that. But mostly favorable responses from the majority of individuals over the years so far. I've got a few lines of communication established with some of the property owners that I've got open cases for. I'm hoping to get those issues resolved soon. And I appreciate the opportunity to serve the town as your code enforcement officer and look forward to creating a positive impact as we progress throughout the year. And if you guys have any questions or comments for me, I'm all ears.
Well, I for one just really, really appreciate the job you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, good job.
I appreciate it.
Pictures pretty.
Yes.
Chad, just curious, the trailer park with the abandoned trailers, how's that coming along?
On the 70 down from KFC. I've got an active deadline with them. I don't have it right in front of me right now, but their deadline is coming up in a couple months. They've still got, I had to issue a 90-day order to clean everything up and get rid of the unauthorized dwelling, which would be the camper for one. But I've been in contact with a lady who's supposed to be cleaning the place up. They have made some progress. I can tell that they're working on it.
Now
But
you can see it now.
yeah.
Gentlemen.
But they still got probably a couple months on their deadline. And once their deadline comes, I'll go back out there and I'll re-inspect. And if there's still issues that need to be addressed, then we would put forth an ordinance for you guys to consider to deal with the town, cleaning up anything there. Yeah, any type of issue needs to be abated out there. We would have to do that by ordinance once their deadline comes.
Okay, thank you.
But I'm on it.
What about the Eric Gabriel property?
I got that case resolved, went out last month and took follow-up pictures and everything. I went out at the beginning, obviously, when I first investigated, I went out about halfway through the follow-up. And then at the deadline, I went out. And that place has made a ton of progress. They've done a lot out there.
But the trailers that are on that property now, is somebody actually occupying those.
Yeah, all those,
And they're gonna be able to stay there.
yeah, that's my understanding. All those are currently occupied. The camper gone, they got rid of the camper when I first sent the initial paperwork down. Mr. Gabriel has been, I told him, don't do that again. So hopefully we're not gonna have that happen.
Okay, thank you.
We've got no place to do that, so.
I appreciate it. If y'all need anything from me, just reach out to me.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
8B, consider approval of contract for copier lease.
I did look at that according to what has been presented in our packet. I'm going to make a motion to replace it. I understand it's gonna have better qualities at a lower price. Always good.
Rick is tough to negotiate with. He
Who
got
is?
to him, Rick.
Oh,
He's saving you 60
hey,
60 a month.
there you go. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor? All right, good. All right, 6C, consider approval of contract for fiscal year 23-24 audit.
Okay, the auditor has presented a contract for the new audit. It is significantly the same, as the current contract. There is a $400 price increase. And if you want, I can point you to the differences in the contract and the new contract, but it's basically just increases in statutory requirements, things that they do between just new regulations and the fact that we have grant release coming in now that we haven't in the past. But right now, the contract is just $400 more than the current, which is 2.75% increase.
What may end up happening is if we expend more than $500,000 in state funds, so you've got your 289.7 for Part F, you've got your 150 from SCIF, let's say you get this auditorium, it's RC2 money. If you end up expending 500,000 or more in state funds in a single year, you have to do a state single audit. I'm not sure if that's reflected in here or if that would be an additional cost. That may cause you to have a higher priced audit, but again, that's nothing to do with staff or the auditing firm. That would just be because it's a requirement by the state if you expend 500,000 or more. We're looking at that. We may or may not hit that. It all depends on how quickly, number one, if we get the auditorium grant, then number two, how quickly we expend that money, the SCIF money and the Part F money. But that may be something that hits us, not in this current year, but in the next audit. Just as a heads up. Motion.
I make a motion to approve the contract for fiscal year 23-24 audit.
All in favor? Thank you. 8B, consider approval of contract for subsurface exploration and geotechnical engineering evaluation at Royal Park. Did I say that right?
You did?
Oh, gosh.
Jack, good.
It is a very fancy way of saying they will be drilling holes.
Yes.
So, they will drill a total of 15 soil boring tests. 4 borings will be extended 20 feet below the existing side grades within the proposed concession stand. 4 borings will be extended to 20 feet below existing side grades within the proposed picnic shelter. 2 will be extended 20 feet below below existing side grades within the proposed entertainment stage amphitheater. 2 borings will be extended 30 feet below the existing side grades within the proposed tower, and 1 boring will be extended 10 feet below the existing side grades within the proposed splash pad, and then 2 more 10 feet below the existing side grades within the proposed playground equipment area. And essentially, this is to make sure that the amenities we want to put on those areas are stable and hopefully not contaminated. But again, so what this was, so I do want to mention when we talked about the contract with West, soil borings was going to be something that's not part of their contract. So this is a company that West and Talley & Smith sent over to do the soil borings. So we will have to get them these results back for their work. but this is just part of the extra costs that weren't part of their contract. And we did need a motion and a vote for approval.
Okay, I'll make a motion.
Okay, all in favor? All right, thank you. All right, now, 8E, discussion of community center long-term lease. And Logan will present, information.
If you'll turn to 8E. So on March 6th, staff received a request letter from Sharon Elliott, Director of Walk and Roll Activities League. WRAL proposed vacating their lease of the 2 rooms on the main floor here in the municipal complex to begin using the community center full-time, as well as some of the space down there for their offices. They proposed renting the community center for $500 per month. Currently, Mrs. Elliott and WRAL lease 2 offices on the main floor of the Albert Parkhurst Municipal Complex, as well as several rooms in the community center for $300 a month. In addition to the leases, WRAL rents the community center twice per month on average, on Friday evenings for roughly $160 per month. WRAL's lease for her office space expires on June 30th. Mrs. Elliott has stated her preference of renting the community center is because elevator access would not be needed to have her clientele enter the building. She also stated she would maintain the area while leasing it, so that's something that the town would not have to, that's a service the town wouldn't have to provide. Recently, the town has not rented out the community center given staffing challenges with maintenance. When available, the town rents the community center to private groups for $40 an hour with a 3-hour minimum and a 6-hour maximum. Renters pay a $250 deposit. They get that back provided they meet all the rental agreement guidelines. And then we also have a nonprofit rate and a military rate, 25% reduction for military, 50% reduction for nonprofits. And this is a request on behalf of Mrs. Barlow, so if you have any questions, she's here to answer.
And just out of curiosity, what happened with the request from that previous group?
They have indicated a couple times that they are still interested, but this is one of the things I talked about with Rick and Alice is we're at 54 weeks waiting on paperwork. This is week 55. Now, they have said that they are trying to get insurance ready and some other things, but I think they ended up sending over a quote by Friday, but I didn't feel that it was right to throw that on the agenda last second, considering WRAL got their stuff in on time.
I'll make a motion, we do it. They take care of it, good clients, they gonna take care of it, we don't have to clean it up. I'll look.
Well, and I'll give you this, so Rick did pull together the rental information. We don't even average, we average around 6,000 a year for the community center, so that's actually exactly what she offered. I don't think she knew that, but somehow it just worked out perfect, so staff has no issues with that.
Probably not fix them, though, right?
Well, what we said was that anytime the council or anytime that you wanted to use that center, then we're fine to open it up to let anybody that council approves to use it at the time. But it would certainly make things a lot easier because of so many of our individuals in chairs. And they just trying to come up the stairs to unlock the elevator, to take it down, to get them in, and come back up, you know, and it
Wore
was,
out already.
yeah, yeah, they are. We're wore out already.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and climbing up and down the stairs is difficult. So if we could have everything on one level and have the opportunity that we can leave things out, because we've had to put things up and take it back down and all that. And we have been so royally blessed. And Ms. Sonia can agree with this, with donations. This is kind of an aside, but up until about 2 months ago, we have a stainless steel freezer that all it had in there was popsicles. Right now, we have it so packed full of donations of food products and things that we can use that really helps our budget, that we actually, and I had to call and ask for approval, we needed a freezer. So we had another family that donated the freezer, and the freezer is packed. So we are so blessed with the community support and all that, and we've tried really hard to kind of reach out to all the different programs. Los Compadres helps us with Cinco de Mayo. We get stuff from Fried Eddie's. We get chicken from Bojangles. My group is thrilled to death that there's a Dollar Tree down here and a Dollar General. So I feel like we're bringing some revenue into the town and letting them know a little bit more about the town. And what we would encourage you to do is come some Friday night and hang out with us, because it is a wild party.
It is.
It is a wild party. Miss Jody and Miss Sonia can agree. Nothing like seeing about 50 people with special needs playing bingo. It is hilarious. But they absolutely love it. And we've had different kinds of things. So we've really publicized it a lot on Facebook and let them see pictures of all the different events. And the problem we have is we're just doing it twice a month. Some of my families can't come during the daylight. Can't come at dark. So we have nothing in the daylight for them. So now that the times changed, we can. But once we have an opportunity, we can then organize some things during the day that allows more people to participate. So if it could, and we promise to take really good care of everything and mop our floors and keep our bathrooms done and keep everything in great shape. And we just encourage you to come check us out, see what you think, and hang out. We'll feed you. We are well blessed with hot dogs. Anybody looking for hot dogs? We are good. I think we're looking at hams at some point, but they have been so excited about feeling like they have a home and they have a place. So we thank you. Yeah. So thank you for that.
I bet you'd still let us have our budget retreat down there.
You certainly can, and we can fill you up with cookies, cakes, pies, whatever you want. Just let us know, we have to throw it out. But we've got 10 pies down there. We got cookies but people have been so good. It's been a wonderful thing. So thank you very, very much. But yes, let us know when you want to we'll decorate it for you. We put your tablecloths on. We give you a centerpiece. Just let us know, because so just let us know when you need it, and we'll have y'all fixed up. We do have TVs, VCR, Roku. If you need to show something, we have those at your disposal.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Then we'll be moving down.
Yeah, we'll move the Wi-Fi downstairs for that, but that way everybody has access to whatever that's there. But we appreciate that, because we feel like it's going to be a wonderful asset. Already has been to our community. We just encourage you to come hang out with us. So.
Any other discussion? Did somebody make a motion?
That makes a motion, we do it.
Okay, all in favor? All right, thank you. All right, F, consider approval of request from CAS for auditorium rent reduction. And I called a lot of y'all about this. I don't think we have any. But
I was thinking that last time we did this, we had said going forward that we had approval for the future for rentals. Did we not?
I think we went back and watched the video. I don't think we did. I think it was just single, but that's a vote you could take now if you wanted to, at least till the end of the fiscal year. Or I'm not sure how that council binding future council thing will work on this instance, but you could do it at least every fiscal year. Just take a vote if you wanted to do it that way.
I rode by this weekend, and the parking lot was just about full every night. They had a great crowd, so it's good to see it being used like that.
Should we consider the rates equal across the board there for any nonprofit? I guess CAS could be a nonprofit. Is that something we don't want to give out special privilege over other nonprofits? Or
I can't remember why we agreed to do the rate reduction last time. So whatever that reasoning was, you could apply that to everybody. I agree with you. You don't want to set a precedent to get one more than the other, but it seemed like there was a reason. I just can't remember that reason. But that's up to council.
I'm just happy to see it being used, so I'll make the motion
All right,
What specifically is your motion?
to rate reduction 75 a day
Just for cast,
for any, across the board, for nonprofit.
okay, for all nonprofits, through the end of the calendar year, the end of the fiscal year? Fiscal year, okay.
That's for cast down any other nonprofit for the end of this fiscal year, so it's changing it in June or July. So we can talk about their budget meeting and stuff.
So we have another nonprofit that has started today, but she paid more than $75 a day,
I
so
thought they were a for-profit.
she provided me paperwork.
Really?
I think we should get on the same rate then.
So do a refund for the difference.
Okay, all in favor? All right, thank you. Okay, 8G, call public hearing for April 24th, 2023 for proposed comprehensive master plan. Somebody just want to make a motion? So it'll be our next meeting, we'll just have a public hearing.
Yeah, so I can touch base on it a little bit. So we've been working on the comprehensive development plan. And right now, the planning board made a motion for recommending approval. And the next step is for you guys to make a motion to call the public hearing for April. And then we'll advertise in the newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks for that public hearing. And then that is when you will pass it and it will be used. But I'll make sure that it's sent out to you all through email, and then we can print over at the COG if you guys want hard copies. We can print them and leave them at town hall for you. Just let us know. We can print some out for you. But it's mainly used like you've seen in your zoning text amendments, zoning map amendments, and your motions for planning and future land use. So if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. That is the context.
Somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
All in
Call
fa-
it public hearing.
Okay. All in favor? Thank you. Now, our budget meetings, our budget workshop. When would be a good time for everyone?
Can't do it.
Yeah.
What day is the 12th?
Wednesday.
That would work for me. Anybody else?
Well, yeah, that's good.
On April 12th.
Yes.
Would
We're
that
gonna
be
have 1 or 2, or just wait and see?
We were gonna plan to cover everything at this one, Rick and I, but
Okay.
what I would say is if we get in there and we feel like we need a second one, we can do that.
Would that be 6 p.m.?
5:30, 6, doesn't
Yeah,
matter to us. Terry is normally the
I
one
can
that,
be there at 5:30.
You wanna do dinner at 5:30 and then start the meeting at 6?
Okay.
You might have a preference on dinner.
It's April 12th, right?
Mexican.
Okay, I was about to say Chubby's, but if you want Mexican, that's good too.
The Los
5:30.
Compadres.
You said it's for April 12th, right? Don't take that down.
Well,
Yeah. And community center.
Make sure I wrote it down right.
Yeah, community center.
You want desserts?
Sure.
We'll hook you up.
Stop.
We will hook you up with desserts.
See a motion and vote on that. You don't mind?
I'm sorry. You made a motion, yes. All right, all in favor? Thank you. Okay, now, 8I, which is now changed to budget. I just wrote down budget, what is it? Budget amendment?
Mark utility.
We have, the first budget amendment is for the maintenance line item to replenish it. With the large expense we had repairing the restrooms up at the park and repairing the lift. We went through our maintenance line item pretty hard. We've got less than 5,000 left, and we have some expenses coming up, not least of which is at least one of the larger ones is the sewer line over at the gym. So we need some additional funds to cover that, what we know is coming and what could come between now and the end of the year. And so this is a budget amendment request to replenish that line item in the amount of $16,000.
So the lift had to have repairs made to it.
Yeah, they did some additional repairs. I believe it was 1,000.
Pan switches, it was like 1,800.
It doesn't work now.
It,
It did.
I can't tell you on a day-to-day basis, but as of the last event, it was.
Yeah.
It did when they were here.
Okay.
Give them money.
Not
You
yet.
put an awning over it, or get a metal awning and put over it, would that help?
Yeah, we talked
We-
about that.
We asked, and Rick was with me, I asked every possible, I said, is there a way to make this thing 100% reliable, anywhere close? The issue with it is, number one is water, that's the biggest issue. And unless you, the way he described it to us, is unless you completely encase it, moisture, water, humidity is always gonna be an issue with the electrical components. The second thing I asked him is, okay, you encase it, what else can cause it to quit? Spiders, crickets, something crawling underneath it, it triggers that switch. He's an elevator guy who said you need to build a ramp.
Well, it's a budget, let's talk about that, building around
Okay,
at the budget meeting.
okay. Just as an FYI, I'm not trying to
Yeah,
dampen 88 doses.
Grants will be shut down, ain't good equipment. We don't need to find us like this.
Well, the other issue you have is safety. If you ended up having to evacuate people with chairs, you can't get one out at a time.
It goes down about 1/100 of a mile an hour.
so
you know,
a ramp would be better.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
okay,
by
let's
far.
talk about that then.
For safety reasons, to evacuate if you had to quickly,
Mhm.
yes.
Okay. So 8J.
Let me,
Oh, did I finish?
just, well, no,
We gotta get a motion for the budget now.
yeah, a motion for the budget amendment, but since Bach is here, do we want to include in our ADA grant application and his plans some type of outdoor ramp? Because if you can get it paid for, I would go ahead and,
Yeah.
If he had them plans, so his plans, yeah.
okay, is that okay? Get a cost estimate and possibly add that?
Sure.
Okay.
But yes, we do need a motion and a vote for the budget amendment.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Okay, now 8J, I have park.
Another budget amendment. We need additional funds for mowing up at the park since we have a staffing issue right now. So this would cover the cost of getting it mowed once a week and maybe some additional sprayings. If we don't mow it every single week, then of course it'll be less. And any money we don't use will revert back to the fund. But this is just a request for additional funds to cover mowing at the park and the disc golf course.
I'll make a motion. All right, all in favor?
Yes, so we get one.
Okay. All right, 8K. I didn't write anything down for that. What is that?
That,
Audit letter.
7 years old.
yeah, it's our local government, commission letter. It is most likely a requirement. We've not had to do these in the past. It's either a requirement our auditor has given us or because of our, yellow book audit, because we did get more than $100,000 in state or federal funds. But anyway, it's a letter we will send to the LGC, council. All of our council will have to sign it, but essentially it is, a letter explaining, I believe it was the timeliness. timeliness of the response, and then the
Sorry about that.
the other findings are not things that we can address unless you wanna hire 6 people just to sign checks and take deposits. So essentially, the corrective action is council will keep an eye on for most of that, but that's really all we can do.
The items in the 2 findings are not new, it's just items that we need to, address the LGC and say, we are aware of the situation and we are monitoring and, staying on top, just go do what we're doing. And, there was actually a third one on there, it's not one of the findings specifically, but it mentions the date of the submittal of the report to the LGC. It just says that we know that it's due by a certain date and, we'll stay on top and endeavor to do our best to make sure it is done on that day.
Okay. What do we need to do besides signage?
Just sign it.
Yeah, just, if you want to approve the, letter and then after the meeting, everybody can sign it.
Give me a motion to do that, approve the letter.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the letter.
All in favor? Thank you. Now go back to 8L, which is Mark's facilities report, and that is in your packet.
One of the things that's not in your packet that I did wanna bring up, so Eastburg Youth had reached out to Wendell and I believe Terry and maybe some other council members in the last couple weekends. They kept having toilets and the drains back up when they would flush the toilets. So the second time that Melissa Barnes reached out to me, I asked Cliffs when they came out to actually put a camera down the line because in total, it was the 3rd time they'd caught them in a month for the gym. So they found I think it was an 8 to 15 foot section where it had bellied or sagged. So we're gonna have to get that replaced, but what we had them do is go ahead and push it all through, and they couldn't guarantee it, but they reassured me that they believed at least through the end of the Eastburg Youth season, which I believe is this coming weekend, for games and tournaments, that they should be fine, but then after that, we're gonna have to replace that sectional line. It's gonna be, depending on how much they do, it's gonna be between $28 and $3,800. And that was what Rick was explaining to you earlier. The reason we need to go ahead and do the amendment for the other expenditures is we have others already kind of piling up, so. But that'll get fixed. We'll get that on the schedule as soon as their season ends to get it replaced.
All right, 8M, February tax collector report, that is in your budget. 8N, February deputy report, that is in your, what did I say in your budget, that is in your packet. Okay, your deputy report is in your packet too.
One note. See if anybody can explain this one. Is there a reason there's a porta potty at the corner of Wilson Road and
I was wondering that too.
North Center Street?
I was wondering that too.
Chad needs a place for
It
that.
was placed there mid-morning today. So, you hadn't seen?
Well, for people that walk, you know.
When you turn the corner off of North Center Street, it turns into Warlick, turn right on the Wilson Road. It's right there top of the manhole. I kid you not. I kid you not.
You don't know where it came from?
Yeah, I guess it would be in DOT right away, so call them.
It's in ditch line, yeah.
Okay.
I just don't know why it's been placed there. And we did have some maintenance at the park. I had a homeless guy picking trash up and pulling the weeds today.
Should his application in.
I told him, I said, I'll make sure the town knows that they appreciate that.
Okay, now we have our committee reports. Technical coordinating committee.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and cover, TCC and TAC. So the boards met this month to they discussed several things, but the biggest thing that's come up is our urbanized area status. And with that status is our traffic management area status. Essentially, the Hickory-Lenore-Morganton MSA, within the boundaries of that itself, has an urbanized area, a defined area within that MSA, as well as a traffic management area designation. This designation is what, one of the things it allows us to do, is what gets us our LAP funding, our locally administered projects program funding. That is worth roughly $3.4 million per year. So over a decade, that's roughly $34 million in transportation money. The reason I bring that up is urbanized areas must have at least 200,000 or more people, and you have to have, depending on the criteria, they seem to change it every 10 years, you have to have X number of people in connection points. So Morganton, Hickory, Lenore, they are all part of one urbanized area. However, you have to have X number of people between Lenore, Hickory, and Morganton. The last census in 2010 had roughly 212,000 people. So we met that threshold by about 12,000 people to keep our LAP funding. This past census, that number dropped from 212,000 to 201,500. So we were 1,500 people away from losing that roughly 34 million every 10 years. So that's an issue. So because it's such an important issue, I've asked Taylor Dellinger of the Western Piedmont Council of Governments to come give a presentation at the next meeting. He will cover more of that in detail. He'll give you some explanations. He'll show you some charts and graphs of where we're doing well, where we're not doing so well. And then ultimately, the way to fix it is honestly just to encourage population growth. There's really not a lot more you can do. I believe Conley Springs, Hildebran, and Longview, that's a weak point in the connection between Morganton and Hickory. There's a weak point in Granite Falls between Lenore and Hickory that could cause us to lose our status. And then there's a weak point, I believe, either at Newton or Conover down to Maiden. And if we are to lose people or have the definition slightly changed to increase the required amounts, then basically the whole area loses that funding, which we don't want to see. So he's going to come give that presentation next month. I just wanted to give you since the TAC and TCC heard it this month, I wanted to go ahead and prep you for why he's coming next month.
Oh, and Logan, just with the comprehensive development plan, there's a lot of focus in that plan on increasing population and diversifying the tax base. It's a housing section, future land use section, identifying high density focus areas that you can place maybe higher density housing, and all that ties into text amendments that, as long as they're within our comprehensive development plan, we can look at that and maybe adjusting the ordinance to reflect those needs. So when you're looking at that comp plan that's sent to you, that will kind of go hand in hand with identifying future needs of high density population and next steps that we need to take. Thanks, Lynn.
Okay, so that's both of those committees. The Western Piedmont Policy Board,
That is tomorrow night.
okay, Burke Economic Development.
Yes, so the BDI board met in Morganton this month at the Foothills Higher Education Center. They discussed the Burke Business Park, the Burke Retention and Expansion Program, and then what they're calling disassociated youth. So BDI received $500,000 from the state to build an additional road at the Burke Business Park, and now they're looking to add another road for truck traffic. That additional road would open up a 1,000 square foot path for additional development. In terms of Burke Retention and Expansion, they assigned 53 student interns with 18 different employers as part of their internship program that they started last year, the Colin program. So I think I mentioned last month that program last year had 25, and this year they're at 53. The only other thing of note is that we have 2,700 disassociated youth in the county. That number is comprised of 16 to 24-year-olds who either are not in school, like college, or secondary education, like welding, something at a community college, or working at all. We have 2,700 of those in our county, 16 to 24, that are not working or going to school. So that the reason for that program is they're trying to catch kids before they graduate high school, so they don't become part of that disassociated youth number. But anyway, so they're working to address that. The good news is they did get 53 interns with 18 different employers. That's all I have.
Recreation and tourism,
Up to the board.
water resource committee,
We haven't met.
okay. Vedic,
I wasn't able to go to the Vedic meeting this month because I was helping with the library's authors luncheon, same time, couldn't go to both. But Vedic will be coming here on in the July meeting to do a presentation to the board.
library board, I have nothing to report. Events committee, I didn't make it, so somebody else is gonna have to report.
Logan?
Karen,
That's
thanks, Karen. So we did meet with Eddie Marlowe, Longview Police Sergeant. He is looking at being our festival coordinator. He showed us some stuff tonight. We talked about a contract. Most likely me and Jared and Karen will need to get together sometime in the next month, sit down and work out exactly what the expectations are from Eddie. We'll all meet at that point to review anything we've missed or what we need to change. He's looking to charge $25 an hour, at least 20 hours for the Friday, Saturday combo, an event we're looking at doing, plus probably some legwork. We'll need to figure out exactly what that cap is since it's 25 an hour. But then the second thing is that the committee's looking at $20,000 to $25,000 a year for the festival. That's probably a pretty, how do you want to call it? That's a
Ballpark figure.
It's a ballpark figure, but it's also probably a minimum you're going to need to invest each year. You're not going to get much more if you drop that number lower than that. We'll talk about it more during the budget, but just as an FYI right now, that's what we discussed. Karen, if I miss anything.
You did good.
All right. And that is all our committees, okay. Number 9, other business.
Any updates for DOT about 118 exit?
I actually reached out to Trevor at Hugh Blackwell's office last week. They reached out the week prior. They still haven't heard anything back, but as soon as they do hear something, they're supposed to give it to me. So I haven't heard anything yet, but they did do the feasibility study. I was told in February, and that was to keep Curly's Fish Camp Road open. I just haven't gotten the report back on that.
I was in Raleigh. The DOT's thinking about putting a roundabout there. And it would take up some of the church's property, but that was the last thing that I heard about it. So I don't know.
Send all your complaints to Karen.
Any updates on Joey?
None at this time, but I'll have something for you shortly.
What did we decide about the gator?
It was purchased either last fiscal year or the one prior, but it took 8 months to deliver. So we have it currently. We've had it, 6 months, 7 months, something like that.
Is it?
Any other business? Any announcements?
I got an announcement.
Okay.
Okay, on April the 21st and 22nd at the College Street Rec Center, they're gonna have, the library is having a book sale. On Friday, it'll be from 5 to 7, and on Saturday from 9 to 4. And this is the way the library raises money for their children's summer activities and some of the other things that the county commissioners doesn't give them money for, the licensing for the movies. So the books are, the hardbacks are $2 and everything else is 50 cents. So go support your library.
Yes.
You're on the library board, correct?
Mhm.
And does the library work with the county, or is that just our own identity?
I was gonna say it again, it's the library.
Does it work with the county
It's-
as far as the facility?
It's supported, it's a facility.
We
it's a
are
county
in dire need of 2 more cameras,
Oh,
outside.
okay,
Lot cameras?
Safety issue, no, just security.
at ours here.
Yeah, that's a county, it's a county building, so you need to talk to the
Okay.
county.
Yeah, we don't have any outside video.
We need it.
Yeah.
The senior center and the library.
Okay. I have an update on the Burke Chamber from the board meeting. So they gave out their February statistics. Currently they have 639 total members. They had 5 new members add last month. They had 45 renewals. They hosted 4 events / ribbon cuttings. They had 10 online events, 2,099 email subscribers, 17 staff training hours, 11 member meetings, 6 prospective member calls, 55 volunteer check-ins, 647 chamber check-ins, and their ambassador spotlight of the month for March was Alicia Thompson. They just opened the Taste of Philly Flava Water Ice, 828. I believe that's somewhere near Drexel or Morganton. Don't quote me on that. But that's all I have.
And I have a question regarding us moving. When do you need us to vacate the offices down here? And when do we start our new 500?
July 1st will be the release for the new downstairs.
So we have until then to kind of get everything moved. Okay, great. So I pay my regular rent for this month through the end of June. Okay, I just want to be sure I pay right.
I think there is a winter in April on a Saturday.
Okay.
Sometime.
Okay. Anybody else wanna say anything?
Do you need a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
All right, all in favor? Thank you. All right, that was a pretty good meeting.
Yeah. Question, I'm just gonna ask you, the Harbor Fair place, movement there in the-
Yeah.
Is that grant?
Oh, yeah.
Just send it to me. Does he realize that he's in So what do you
What you need.
Just send on the
Them only this big.
never noticed that. But he is coming back to work. Oh, see, had I said it so late, but you can tell about my Could he put us off and on? Well, I guess it's the same guy. Instead of on budget. When I need to clean it out, I can just turn it off and flush it, clean it out, and then just turn it back on. I mean, it could be a box man on the side of it, on the back. The way it was, it's just like it was.
How you justify with that?
So it's apparently the off and on or whatever makes it turn on, goes, you know, like it goes in and out. You know, when we start, will that be?